Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Etheria restart video. So in today's video, guys, we're going to be going over the shells that you should be farming depending on where you're at in your account. Some of the last four shell dungeons, depending on where you are, make a little more sense for you to farm over other areas. I'll also say that I think sometimes people put a little too much emphasis into the Inferno farming, where if you're in PvE, you really don't need to farm Inferno as much as you think. Yes, the shells that drop from Inferno, the ones that have these specialized cores, even if you can't farm the module dungeon, do have the ability uh, to give you some higher stats. So if there's, triple matrices on these from those Inferno drops, uh, your base stats on your shells are increased versus the ones that you get from the hell stages. However, I'll honestly say when it comes to farming and just climbing up and progressing in PvE, sometimes the actual effects and things like that from the shell matter a bit more. Now, when you're min maxing and you're trying to get into Inferno stages of modules or even shells, yeah, you're probably going to need every bit of resources and stats that you can get, but it's a slow process. So I kind of just wanted to talk on that because some of these shells are better in certain instances than others. And I figured we'd just walk through it a little bit together. So when it comes to Nikon Nana, right, this is the most accessible shell dungeon for sure. I think the game sets you up to kind of have an ideal team to farm Nikon Nana. And what I mean by that is the game gives you like extremely simple characters to use in this dungeon. Kachi, the red Kachi you start out with. So the red Kachi has a turn meter pushback and stun. This is really, really important on these two side ads who do stunning. And then they also have the ability to buff this boss. So the game gives you this character. The game also gives you a perfectly serviceable damage dealer in Sybil, which is right here. It's a positive element to Nico Nana. So that means you only need to build this character with 85% crit rate. It brings its own defense down, which helps damage amp. It's also a character that brings multi hits, which means you can put her on Revelation. Now, I know if you're just like farming health stages right now of Nico Nana, uh, Revelation is kind of irrelevant because you haven't gotten up to Shadowflame Hoyan. But still, putting this character on like a Twilight Knight, which is an epic shell, is still serviceable. Or if you've farmed Nico Nana a little bit and you've got White Fang, it's still an okay shell to put on here. But she also gives herself speed up, where the whole mechanic between Nico Nana here is to increase your damage based on the disparity between your speed and the speed of Nico Nana. So these two characters alone are fantastic. The game also gives you one of the best healers in the game in Ling Luo for this spot. Not only to keep your team healthy, but also put up immunity on your team just in case the ads wanted to stun. Now, when it comes to dispelling, this is one of those areas where it's just like, okay, yeah, the game doesn't really give you, a true dispel, but uh, you can, if you've pulled, some of these characters, you can certainly use them here. Viper is probably best in slot. He just does so much dispelling. He also puts up speed down and attack down to kind of help you survive a little bit. A team like this covers all of your bases. So you're stripping the buffs from Nico Nana. You're putting attack down to make Nico Nana hit a lot less harder. Here you have your Kachi to turn meter pushback to stun the ads. You have Sybil as your main DPS, but also landing defense down for the damage amp and self-buffing her speed. And then you have Ling Luo, who's giving you immunity and some heals. So it's just an overall really strong, solid team to start out with. If you don't have Viper, Fungus is also a really nice option here as well. You're not going to be dispelling, but you are going to be able to put AoE speed down as well as putting up some dots on the boss, which allows you to slowly chip away at him. And it's another form of DPS, so you might end up killing the boss a little bit quicker. Um, None of these runs, you know, might be 100%, but even myself, I've just truly given up on the 100% thing. The game just has way too much RNG where I just don't care. Like if I get 7 wins, whatever. If I burn energy, whatever. I'm just going to keep running those things and move on with my day. So when it comes to Nikon Nana, the shells that you should be looking out for are these first three. White Fang, Artisan, and Gigabyte. They're all really, really great shells. And I still use them even to the end game. White Fang is your primary shell when it comes to like speed clearing, high damage output. Because he does some high damage follow up attacks, sometimes he is the final blow to the bosses. So heroes like Lilium, heroes like Ditting are usually used on White Fang for speedruns. There are certainly cases where Count is very good. There's certainly cases where Revelation, if you have a multi-hitter, is better than White Fang. But White Fang still has his uses even in the end game. When it comes to PvP, the nice thing about White Fang is he does have the matrix drops of Swift Rush and Swift Raid. So you can even put one of your speed leads in this shell. Like right here, I've got my Lily in this shell. She's going 332 speed in PvP, which isn't like super high, but thankfully, or not so thankfully, the meta is very bruiser heavy, so you don't need to be super fast. So yeah, like you can put lilies on here, you can put Tsukiyomis on the White Fang if you wanted to. So it's not just primarily tied to a damage dealer. So that's kind of cool. Artisan is extremely useful in climbing up PvE. It's a form, a pseudo form of healing in a sense. This is on a 3-turn cooldown, but there's plenty of characters in the game like Tsukiyomi, like Mia, like Kazami Kazuyo, which is an SR that reduces skill cooldowns. And you can kind of loop back around to the Artisans plenty of times. Artisan also comes with the coveted Swift Rush Time Weave matrices. So this 12 and 12 set, I think, is perfectly like one of the best combo pieces for PvE. It's one of the shells that I've used certainly the most when it comes to my PvE runs. This shell right here, Swift Rush Time Weave, this is awesome. Even if you don't have the Aether Plague here, this is what you're looking for. Same thing with Gigabyte. Gigabyte also uses the Swift Rush Time Weave triple matrix, the 12-piece sets, reducing skill cooldowns. Really important. I've said in multiple videos, this also reduces skill cooldowns of shells. So having that on your Artisan can reduce your Artisan's shell cooldown, which is really cool. So yeah, I used Artisan to quote unquote cheese some content by running 2 or 3 Artisans on my characters and just having those huge shields on all of your characters almost all the time, it felt like, especially when you were using the cooldown reduction team. Fantastic shell. When it comes to PvP, the shell's also extremely useful. It has a very strong matrix set in Bloodbath. This thing is a bit OP right now, with a combination of the actual arena, effect that they have in PvP, where damage is reduced and then over time damage starts scaling up. Like it just, Bloodbath is the set to be using right now. So the fact that Artisan has the ability to also have Bloodbath on it, it's one of the best shells to consistently farm because it's so versatile. So Yeah, fantastic. And now Gigabyte is a shell that you have the capability of running Swift Rush Time Weave, so it can be on any of your supports. It also has Bloodbath, so again, it transitions over to PvP very well. And then it also has Wellspring and Cure, so you can throw it on a healer, and they'll just cycle back around to their heals a lot more often, while also getting the benefit of the HP boost and healing, which is quite important in things like Aurora, and then just general PvE content. Alicorn, on the other hand, is almost primarily a PvP shell. It does have Swift Rush and Time Weave, which is nice, but it also has Wellspring. So if you want to use this on a healer, you can, and it also has Bloodbath. So really nice options in Nikon Nana. When it comes to Sharon, Sharon is very, very niche. Like her shells are very niche. You're not going to be using them in a lot of places, but there are some cases where they're quite good. So Supernova, and I will say, Sharon, like this shell boss is way overtuned. Like the Inferno stages here, this is quite frustrating because I think this is the one area where you like truly need an SSR for this to be achievable for most people. Or you are farming Inferno just like as the last shell farm that you can do if you don't have specific SSRs and you're trying to do with SRs only. You really need some good gear. So the nice thing is I think personally the shells that drop here, uh, you can even just farm the Hell stage because the main one you're looking for is Halloween. Halloween is quite possibly one of the best shells for PvE. It depends on where you're at in your account, but having a Halloween with Swift Rush Time Weave on it is just absolutely fantastic. You get the cooldown reduction from the Time Weave set, and then you also have the capability of reducing the skill cooldowns from Halloween. Um, and if you're running Time Weave, you have the capability of even reducing the cooldown on the shell itself to 2 turns, where you're just reducing everything. It it'll make you feel like a 5 cooldown reduction skill is on like 2 turns. Uh, this is one of the more OP shells in the game. So getting Swift Rush Time Weave on Halloween's, it's very interchangeable to the gigabytes from Nikon Nana. I'd say that the higher skill cooldown characters that have 5 turn cooldown, 4 turn cooldown, probably want to be run on Halloween, where the 3 turn cooldown characters probably prefer Gigabyte, or the characters that have like a skill 3 and a skill 1 without any passives are going to prefer the Gigabyte over the Halloween. But Halloween is again like one of those shells that is just so universal because it has the Swift Rush Time Weave, and then it also has the capability on its own effect to reduce skill cooldowns. So yeah, when it comes to Dark Moon is very interesting because the ability itself is okay. It's just like all of the side or complementary pieces is what makes Dark Moon pretty good. Uh, I'd say that it's more of a PvP shell, but it could certainly be used in PvE. The fact that this does 2 individual hits of damage before you attack, as well as targeting the highest attack character, this is really important for certain comps that utilize Ditting, because Ditting has that passive that gives him additional crit or crit damage, depending on the character who has the lowest HP at the time. So you can utilize a character like Dark Moon on a Heinrich, on someone like Kloss, to kind of chip away at the damage of the main boss that you're targeting in order to activate the passive effect of Ditting. Some other instances where Dark Moon can be good is the fact that you increase the effect accuracy of your character at the beginning of the turn. And then every 3 turns, you get that accuracy boost again. Where this becomes relevant and nice to have is if you're progressing through the game and on the right side of your character, if you have, if you have a control character or something like that, and you know that you need a lot of effect accuracy, but let's say you don't have enough bulk, like your characters are not surviving. So maybe instead of going 3 pieces of effect accuracy, you can put on an HP percentage shell where it gives you a little more bulk, but now you're a little bit worried about your effect accuracy landing at the beginning of the match. That's where you can really utilize a shell like Dark Moon to get the additional effect accuracy to make sure that your stuff is landing while also giving your character a little bit more bulk when it comes to the HP itself. So, yeah, that's where Dark Moon is really really nice. Supernova, I do think that this shell is a bit overshadowed uh, by Fortissimo, which is farmed in Rengokutsu. However, I will say that the additional healing from Supernova is just amazing in Aurora. You need to be able to break that curse shield, so utilizing this shell on someone like a Ling Luo is really, really great. It does have Swift Rush Time Weave, so if you're having an issue with skill cooldowns on your Ling Luo, you can certainly run it here. But I would say most of the time you're looking at like Cure and Swift Rush as the ideal kind of matrix pairing to keep your Ling Luo quick and then getting the additional healing from here as well with the Supernova's ability to kind of help break through some of those healing barriers in Aurora. But that's a very niche shell. Uh, when it comes to PvP, this shell is kind of nice because it does have bulwark. There's not a lot of shells that have bulwark on them. And right now, the meta is just like tank or crowd control. So you need to have bulwark in a lot of cases to kind of get you through that first turn to be able to beat crowd control. It also has bloodbath on it, so the coveted bulwark bloodbath combination in PvP is very very strong right now. One of the issues with Supernova though is it does not have one of the better specialized core matrices when you get to farming Inferno. Uh, Speed is still super important. Not so much going first or going, you know, extremely fast, but you have to have enough speed to where crowd control can't loop you over and over. Because if so, you're gonna die too. You can't win unless you take a turn. So it is more of a niche shell, both in PVE and PvP. But having 1 or 2 of these in your inventory is probably going to be pretty important. So Golden Lion also just got a recent buff, and it's still just niche. It doesn't get there. I use it on one character, which is like Fangus in a PvE setting, because I mean he uses his skill 1 a lot. He gets a little bit of chip damage in there, but increases his effect accuracy by a high amount to try and consistently land the DOTs can be important, but this is an extremely niche shell. It's got very unique matrices, which is kind of cool, but sadly, it's not where it needs to be. And I switched my gear on my Obel when I was showing you uh, which shells and stuff. Uh, Also, yeah, when it comes to Sharon, like the Inferno stage, because she can't be controlled at all or turn me or pushed, any of those things, I honestly wouldn't even worry about farming Inferno. I would just farm hell, put up your debuffs, try and kill her as fast as possible. She puts up a lot of DOTs. This is where like Kachi the guard are going to be really important. Red Kachi is still really good in here, by the way, because you can push back the side ads, which also remove buffs. Uh, They also land DOTs, so being able to push back and stun them while also boosting your damage dealer, something like a Dinning, is going to go a long way, I think. So, yeah, this is a fight that I think most people aren't going to be able to do on Inferno, but you really shouldn't care because those shells, they really aren't important, in my opinion, for PvE. Other than the Halloween, but farming Hell and just getting the Swift Rush Time Weave is certainly serviceable. Now, Shadowflame Hoyan, uh, this dungeon is very, very important to farm because all of these shells are very relevant for PvP. And from a PvE setting, it gives you Revelation, which is still extremely strong in PvE for multi-hitters. I've showcased just recently a couple teams on my channel for like Inferno Doki Doki, where you don't even bring a damage dealer, you just bring a multi-hit hero like Kazuyo the Reverie. You can bring Freya. You can bring Victor. Anyone that has multi-hits can certainly use this shell to do high amounts of damage. From a PvP setting, it's been certainly nerfed. I think rightfully so. However, I think the devs are most likely going to hit Bloodbath as well to balance some things out. Because once you touch one thing, something else is going to rise to the top, and that has been Bloodbath for sure. It's a combination of Bloodbath and then the arena effect. I don't know why they did those things. And on top of that, they buffed two of the best bruisers in the game with Rahu and Holden. I don't understand what was happening there. But I digress. Fantastic shell for PvE. Any multi-hit hitters, like I said, Shiadas, Rosas, Yellies, all of those characters are going to be on the Revelation. Jackal Guard is a solid shell for PvE. However, the game has pumped out a couple more of the characters that have an AoE speed buff. So if you have that character, this becomes a little bit less useful. I've said that a couple times. This does have follow-up attacks, so you can use it similar to Dark Moon to kind of tune your teams with Didding to focus down the main target that you want Didding to have his passive effect apply to. So that is a thing. The turn meter boost is certainly really solid. And if you have some team combinations where you're not using an AoE speed like Animus, this is a great shell. It also has all of those relevant matrices. It's got the Swift Rush, it's got Time Weave. When it comes to PvP, it's got Bloodbath, and it also has Swift Smite, which gives you that additional speed boost that I was talking about with prior shells that did not have the best quote unquote specialized cores. Swift Smite, Swift Raid are very important when it comes to the speed on that third matrix slot. So the fact that Jackal Guard has that, it has like the coveted triple matrix trifecta when it comes to PvP, which is Bulwark, Bloodbath, and Swift Smite. This is a amazing combination. So Jackal Guard, as you can see, it has the best matrices for PvE, which is Swift Rush Time Weave, and then it has the best matrices for PvP, which is Bulwark, Bloodbath, and Swift Smite, currently at the making of this video. Now, Law of Silence is actually quite good too when it comes to some of your sneaky damage dealers in PvP. This doesn't really even work in PvE. I tried to use this on Terramaton, and it didn't work. Terramaton still targeted the character that had the Void State, which was frustrating because you definitely want your damage dealer to avoid getting hit by Terramaton. So I wish that they would fix this. But when it comes to PvP, this Void State allows you to take less splash damage. Now, you have characters in the game like Messiah. You have characters in the game like Yelly who do a lot of AoE damage. So being able to reduce the splash damage there and not be targeted, this is really important too, because Yelly, even though she has that big AoE on her skill 3, she also does follow-up attacks. So if you have your damage dealer in Law of Silence, the Yelly can't target your damage dealer with the follow-up attack. So you have a chance to survive and then also do your own kind of damage right back. So that's kind of neat. A bit niche, but This is good on a couple characters in the meta. I would say specifically someone like Messiah and Lilium. So pretty good. And then also has some pretty unique matrices as well, like Bramble on this shell is quite interesting. I think most of the time you're going to be using it as a DPS. So you're going to be looking for like Keen Eye, Harvest, and Fury Edge. And then Amber. Amber has also risen up the ranks a little bit in PvP. When it comes to PvE, I haven't found a use for this right now. But for PvP, it does have Bloodbath here. So it has Bloodbath and it has Swift Smite. And then it also has like Unbreakable and Bramble. So it's a great shell for Mizuki Mikado, for Holden, for Rahu. And again, as I mentioned, the arena effect right now is the more turns that go by, the more damage you're going to do, the less healing that happens. So, like, if you have a bunch of characters on Amber currently, they have a second life, right? And if you're pairing them on your Rahus, if you're pairing them on your Holdens, the more time that goes by, the harder those characters are going to hit. So this shell has kind of creeped up a little bit with the nerf to Revelation, Lighthouse, and things like that on Rengokutsu that you used to be farming have gone down in value, where shells like Amber have gone up in value. So yeah, pretty cool shell, but again, it's mainly just PvP. When it comes to Shadowflame Hoyan is one of those dungeons that you can use the dot team on, which is really, really nice. If you have Shadow Sanya, it just makes things a lot easier. It's not even 100% clear because you need the stun from Obel. Things don't always land, but who cares? You know, at this point, like I said, the 100% clear rate is whatever. I will say with Lilium being released recently, it's opened up some other possibilities for like really fast clearing. If you don't have Lilium or Shadow Sanya, I've shown a couple teams with like Obel and Fangus in the past to just do a bunch of dots. And then you're going to use other characters to just freeze or stun or push back the side adds from this boss, because when they counterattack, it gives the boss more attacks. So, yeah, couple things to consider there. Now, when it comes to Rengokutsu has an amazing shell in here, which is Codex of Magic. Even if you can't farm Inferno of Rengokutsu, I think farming Hell to have a bunch of Codex of Magic on your account is great, not only for PvP, but also for PvE. You have the Swift Rush matrix on here, which you're just going to be using on your control heroes. You can also throw this on some of your healers. Like I've seen some people use this on Ling Luo. I've seen some people use it on Mia for PvE to just get that huge heal off 2 times in a row. So it can be used in speed comps. It can be used in any of the anti-sync echoes, Ember Treks. It can also be used in Ethernet Rally. Like this is probably the most versatile shell. The only thing holding it back is certainly the fact that it does not have time weave on it. But I'd say in most settings, you're using this shell just to S3 your main, control character twice at the beginning of the fight for really short fights. Like this is speed clearing at its finest, where something like Gigabyte, Artisan, or Halloween is going to be for progression. And then Codex will then supersede those shells whenever you're farming very, very fast, and you don't need the skill cooldown reductions of Time Weave. You don't need the skill cooldown reduction from the Halloween procs. You don't need the shields from Artisan or the turn meter push from Gigabyte. You're just killing the boss really, really fast. And then when it comes to PvP, if you're able to farm Inferno, again, this is one of those shells that has the Bulwark, Bloodbath, Swift Smite, or Swift Raid for your speeds to help you survive and just continue with the tank down. It also has Strive on it, which is pretty cool. So Strive, Bloodbath, high res is something that is interesting to just keep your turn meter advancing and giving your damage dealers like your Rahus and your Holdens a little bit more um a little bit more cycling, especially if they're not fast. It's hard to get your characters fast when you are not utilizing Swift Rush, but the fact that Swift Smite is on here as well as Swift Raid, just extremely versatile. Now, these other shells, like Lighthouse, used to be absolutely cracked prior to the Revelation nerf. It was the main way to combat Revelation. But now that Revelation has been nerfed, there's not a whole lot of turns where you are taking more than a quarter of your health, which is what makes this proc, which is why it's kind of fallen out of favor. I will say, though, there's absolutely no way that this shell does not come back. I think once the devs do something to Bloodbath, I don't know if they will. I think Bloodbath feels a bit overpowered right now because of that arena effect that goes along with it. I don't know why they paired that up. So maybe this doesn't need, touched at all. Like I'm not saying it needs nerfed. Uh, I know a lot of people call for that, but I think there's plenty of ways to switch this up. But I digress. The point is when it comes to Lighthouse, even if you have a couple of these stocked up, don't disregard them. This will certainly come back. It has that Swift Smite matrix on it. It has Bloodbath on it, which is really nice. It does not have Bulwark. So it's not the ideal shell against crowd control, which is another reason why it's kind of fallen out of favor. But it will be back. This also has Swift Rush Time Weave on it. So if you're able to farm Hell and you're struggling a little bit with like anti-sync echoes or any of these dungeons where the bosses just do so much damage to you, this is a way to heal a little bit back up and then also boost your turn meter. So it's kind of like Gigabyte and Artisan in one shell at some time. I know the Artisan gives you a big shield instead of healing, but I still think it's a combination of the Gigabyte and the Artisan just for like a specific character. It's more of a selfish shell than a team player like Artisan is. So yeah, Fortissimo, I think this is the ideal shell over Supernova. But when it comes to Aurora, I think the additional healing effect is way more important. But in every other setting, I think Fortissimo is a bit better. Slapping this on a Lingluo, a Chiaki, a Sonya is just absolutely nuts. I use the Fortissimo with Wellspring and Cure on my Sonya, and she just gets me through so much content. When it comes to PvP, though, Fortissimo does have Bloodbath, which does make it somewhat useful. And then the Wellspring Cure, like if you want to throw it on a Sonya for PvP, I think it's certainly serviceable. It also has Colossal Guard, which gives you some additional effect resistance. So with the Bloodbath and the Colossal Guard, you can build a very high res Sonya, and you'll still get plenty of healing from the Fortissimo's effect. And then you also have the option to have Wellspring on there too. So you can do like Wellspring, Bloodbath, Colossal Guard. You have a very tanky healer. You're just going to have to build it high res or you're going to get blown out by crowd control. And then last but not least is Count. Now, Count is a pretty serviceable shell for PvE. It allows your damage dealer to have a little bit of sustain on it because the life leech is, at most times when this procs and your damage dealer has those 2 turns of the additional attack boost, this is most likely going to heal that damage dealer up to 100%. Very, very strong. There's even cases where I've used this, to break the Curse Shield in Aurora from the healing that you get there to help, your damage dealer just do more damage the next turn after the Curse Shield was broken with Count. So do not discredit that. In most cases, Revelation or White Fang is going to be used over this, but still a very, very strong shell. I think it goes up in usefulness once you're able to farm Inferno to get like the additional Fury Edge and Swift Raid boosts. from a PvE setting, but still quite good. Now, from PvP, this is, I think, the premier kind of shell because it has bulwark on it. This is the only damage dealing shell that has bulwark on it between Revelation, White Fang, um, Law of Silence, and did I say that? Law of Silence, White Fang, Revelation. Yeah. This is the only one that has bulwark. So, yes, it's a bummer that like you don't get any kind of attack stat or damage on it, but the immunity is just so important right now. Most people know that the crowd control heroes are very squishy. So, the fact that if you get one turn with your damage dealer, you're most likely killing those crowd control heroes. So yeah, that's where count comes into play. Now, I've done a couple different videos on Rango Kutsu. The whole gimmick here is to make sure that you just bring four unique affinities. So bring one light, one dark, one blue, one red. Plenty of teams out there. Check this rankings. Whether it's a speed team or not. Filter out by not containing any of the premier damage dealers like Yelly, uh, Lily, or Lilium. And here, you have some teams. You have some free to play options. You got some tank options. Like that's the whole thing, though, is to bring different affinity characters. Um, so yeah. Anyway, that's all I got, guys. Just wanted to walk through the shells, like when you should be using them, which shells to target for PvE versus PvP, why they're important in regards to the actual matrices themselves. And yeah, just hopefully this was useful to you guys. Just walking through why they're utilized. And I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.